Hello, this is episode 26. Brilliant Wealth and Wellness podcast coming to you. We got June already, 2025. Can you believe this?
No, I can't. Year's halfway over.
Yep. And in this episode, we're gonna chat about more so business than wellness, which I guess, business health actually ties into mental health of the owner and of the employees too. So it is, I guess, still wellness too, because financial health ties into our mental health.
Yep.
But we're gonna talk about common issues that business owners face, and especially mom and pops, small business owners, or new business owners, people that come in from 9 to 5 trying to run their business. That there are things that we ran into that we don't anticipate and we don't know when we're an employee, or we never ran a business before. You can't know what you don't know, right?
Right. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of people struggle with, and I'm not alone, and I don't want to speak for my wife, but I'm sure she's not alone either. It's marketing, right? Marketing is this beast that a lot of people just don't understand or don't want to understand, which is okay too. But that's kind of the key to your business, right? You can't just hope that people are going to show up.
Yeah, the days of when you just put up your shingle on the main street and then put maybe a listing on Yellow Pages, those days are way long gone.
That's where, I sometimes I chuckle when I see businesses still, like one of them I can think of is ABC Supply. And you might be like, ABC Supply? Like what? Like, who would come up with that
I don't
name?
know that one.
The reason it's ABC Supply or AAA Locksmith or whatever is that when you did have the Yellow Pages, you'd be at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. And it's marketing is interesting. It's like technology, ABC Supply or AAA Locksmith, it's almost like a car. It's a punctuation in time, that at the time when those businesses were formed, that's how you did marketing.
Right. So marketing is one of the issues that is the oxygen and the blood flow of the business that people don't know well enough about, or they run out of money, and then because they're not making enough money, they're not capitalized, they're not willing to invest upfront into marketing to get money revenue. That's what a lot of businesses fail. So it's important to understand that when you are a business owner, you're actually an investor now. Like, you're no longer receiving money by the hour as, just showing up, doing the work and leaving. Actually, now you're investing resources and money into marketing. Perhaps you're investing in brick and mortar office. Perhaps you're investing into equipment. That's the main difference, and having capital is important. Maybe getting loan or savings when you start a business, you gotta be aware that you're gonna have to spend money in order to make money.
And spending that money in places that your customers are at, right? I mean, I'm an IT guy, but marketing 101 is be where your customers are, right? If you're selling kebabs or steaks or whatever, your customers are probably not at the vegan or the vegetarian supermarket, right? That's just kind of an obvious type thing.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Any marketing is, though it's, whatever you can do, but you want to target where your customers mostly are. Mm-hmm. Now, these days, Google and Meta ads are still the winners. They're kind of the monopoly really out there. You have no choice but use those if you want to be successful.
But think of, Google, Facebook, Meta, insert other, FANG company type deal into the equation. But the thing to think about is that's not just the only place, right? Say you're in Vermont and you're an IT company. Are you part of the Vermont Technology Alliance? Are you part of the Chamber of Commerce? Burlington Young Professionals? That's just an example of the area,
Yeah.
although Chamber of Commerce is like a worldwide thing. But think of things like that. It might not necessarily be where your customer is, but having your business.
Some of them.
Yeah. Some of them, I've met, customers at just networking events or through people at networking events. But think about it too is
SEO.
Yeah,
benefits.
SEO. Yeah, you're listed on the Chamber of Commerce site that, adds more domain authority to your brand.
Yeah, SEO, and then you can still meet people at some of the events and build buzz, and that is a lower cost marketing than pay-per-click Google search ads like paid search or awareness ads such as Meta ads. They're mostly for brand awareness because Google really, it is people ready to buy. Meta is more for maybe looking, maybe now, maybe later. You're just building that awareness that they know you exist. And then maybe they see you on Facebook, then they go Google you, and having good reviews and then good website design. Sometimes at small businesses, I see websites that are outdated. They're just slow, or their layouts are not user friendly. So staying up with the times, investing into good website design experience is another important thing. Having easy to navigate, like easy, clear call to action buttons, very important.
The one thing that I will say about a website for any small business out there is, go to your website as just a person that has no clue what your business does. After 10, 15 seconds of just kind of clicking around on your website, do you have a really good idea what that business does?
Yeah, all the services you would want to have listed out and easy to understand. So, so marketing plus technology. So these days, if you are not good at technology, it's gonna be hard to run a successful business, because now as we talked about, most of the marketing is done online. It's digital marketing. Yes, like you're gonna go still locally to the events. Maybe you'll be a vendor at some, farmers market, depending what you're selling, or sponsoring some events, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's like Instagram and Meta and Google and maybe Yelp. All these online directories is gonna be way to be discovered. And then, there comes YouTube videos. So you gotta be in times with technology, and there's no excuse, well, I'm not good with technology. Then you gotta hire people to help you. So that is marketing. That is one piece that I see business owners struggling and not making headway. But then also, when we start to dig deeper, once you do start to gain some tractions and you have enough customers where you can hire people, then I see there is culture issues, lack of systems, and maybe not the correct compensation structure, maybe lacking clear vision, mission when you onboard people. And that can also make or break small business if you don't have good systems, processes, and confidence in your people. You don't have good training for your people.
Because if you don't have good culture at your business, even if it's just a couple of people, that's what eats a business away from the inside. It's a small town, small state, small world, right?
Could be small or could be big.
It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
You could be in New York City, or LA, one of the biggest cities in the world. It's still small. Word gets around really quick. All it takes is a couple of social media posts, and there's plenty of large businesses out there that, took detrimental hits to their brand because of social media posts. And where I'm going with that is, employees want to feel like they're part of the system, right? They're part of the business. They're not just
part of, and they have to be on board with the mission and vision and the type of people that you want. Let's say for us, it's very important: integrity, no gossiping, honesty, helpfulness for each other. Yes, we can have friendly competition, but it's only friendly. There shouldn't be we don't want people that's gonna be jealous. Oh, this person is doing better. No, use that as a motivation to do better. There is no place of, we don't want any negative people like that in our organization, that would want to sabotage other employees for their own gain. That's what really can create displeasure working. If somebody's getting bullied by some employee, or even the owner, if owner allows and overlooks, because someone they can be a top performer, but they're not the right cultural fit. And I've fired people like that. Maybe they had great attributes, but then they had a couple bad habits that just were not jiving with our culture, and they just had to go.
Yeah, it's important. And one of the things that Yolita just mentioned that's kind of interesting is, if someone is doing better than you in your company, or you're like, oh, what, they're getting everything, they're getting all the bonuses or whatever, rather than looking at them and getting upset, ask them, what's the secret, right?
Learn from them.
There was this, I think it was maybe on Facebook or Reddit or something like that, and it was these two guys that were doing TV mounting businesses. And this one guy was just absolutely crushing it, really, from the marketing. He had this funny marketing. He would have, pieces of tape on his head when he was mounting TVs. And it was just all kind of funny, but it was engagement, right? And so this one guy was like, well, hey, instead of hating on this guy and being, what's his deal? And, he called him up and was like, hey, I'm trying to get my feet off the ground too. Can I come and shadow you? Show me your secret. And the guy was like, sure, come on, let's be partners, right? And you can do that, in within a company too, say you like doing certain things in a company and someone else likes doing other things, bounce those off of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so the other thing what can help to create this, incentivizing employees for the right behavior, and then not tolerating employees that exhibit bad behavior. So if you're an owner and you're telling your team members, we want to do things this way, but then there's one person that undermines management's efforts and authority, and then they see that person gets away with it, then it kind of brings down the whole trust and culture down, because then we're like, well, this person is not doing it and they're not getting in trouble, and why should I be doing this?
Yeah, it's if you can't beat them, join them mentality. And that's a toxic attitude to have, because that's not the way that I was brought up, right? I was brought up, you go into work, or you get up in the morning and you do work, whether that's for yourself, someone else, for your whoever, but you do work, you do your best with what you know at the time, and that's what you do, right?
Well, and you want to follow okay, where's the company heading to? What's my duty as a team member to contribute to it? And then there's people that undermine management, then it can trickle down to other people, because one bad apple can really quickly infect a little bit of other staff that's maybe a little more vulnerable, that's maybe on the fence, and it can kind of negatively impact. And I used to be way more lenient on these things when I first became business owner, because we had COVID, we had hard times, and I was during certain periods, you always feel bad, and you give benefit of the doubt. Well, maybe this person will get better, or they, oh, they're really good at this task, but they're kind of slacking here. You gotta look at all the pros and cons, and at the end of the day, you have to do what's the best for the longevity and health of the organization, because guess what, if that business goes out of business, then all of the employees gonna have to go and find a new place. So it's better to let one person find a new place that's being disruptive than shut down the whole business.
Yeah, and company culture, it will never work if it doesn't come from the top down. And
right.
I'll give you a perfect example. Say you're an organization of 10 people. And, everyone wants a Mac, just as an example. The owner says no, but then, the owner has a Mac, right? Like, that's just going to breed discontent, The owner, HR, whoever, everyone, you're all in the same boat, Well, why does Billy have a better computer than I do? Well, he does CAD work, and he needs a $5,000 workstation to do his job. You know what? You are primarily web and Outlook. You do not need a $5,000 computer to do your job. But, someone in the same position that they get a better computer or something, and this might sound kind of silly, like better computer, but you'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised at how little things like that can really breed this toxic environment, because it's not coming from the top down. That's how you make meaningful change, right? It has to come from the top down. And that kind of goes into kind of compensation structure and systems as well. I can
right.
talk about systems.
Yeah, and then having compensation based on performance, because while, when I was first business owner, I just had flat fee for straight commission for everyone, but that just doesn't work, because there's going to be people, like I mentioned, that's going to be better at certain tasks than the other, and then you should compensate them accordingly. Mm-hmm. If they're really trying hard, they're putting extra work and like selling certain products, then they should get rewarded for that.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into systems too, right? You can use your compensation structure in conjunction with systems, whether it's a sales contest or whatever, people training and they get certain spiffs, or, reaching out to customers. That's where systems really come into play to, you don't want to gamify everything, right? But gamification can really help breed that healthy competition, within your company.
Making it fun.
Yeah, competition is not necessarily a bad thing, when everybody is working towards the same goal, right?
Yeah, it should be friendly competition.
Yeah, if there's a salesperson that's putting in 40, 60, or excuse me, well, they should be putting in 40, but if they're putting in 70, 80 hours every week, and, they should be rewarded if they're bringing in more sales to the company. And that's typically why sales is commission-based.
Mm-hmm.
But you can use systems to not only do things about your compensation structure, you can use it for training, you can use it for, giving out fun things, right? People that rebook the most clients. Okay, you've won the sales contest for this month. Here's, $100 gift card.
Yeah, performance.
Yeah, performance-based. Mm-hmm. And, just from an IT perspective, when someone says systems, to me, that means, okay, well, email, website, HR, finance, things of that nature. And the biggest piece of advice that I can give to anybody looking at systems to run their business is, look at what's out there and do demos, right? Do proof of concepts. Look at what systems work and work best for your business. And maybe say, you know what? And this is personal, advice here is, I really believe in this product, the product is called Level. And I believe in it. I believe in the developers. I can get a hold of the developers, the CEO. Is this the best tool right now? No. When I first started using it, it was not. However, they have really tailored that product to what people like I need, with input from the community. So don't necessarily look at the newcomers on the field as, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They probably do. And you know what? They're going to build a product that is why everybody else doesn't like the products that are out there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then systems can be used for onboarding people, pre-recorded videos, trainings to familiarize with certain, let's say, point of sale, or certain procedures, like certain services. There's a lot of time saving, and it removes the burden of day-to-day also, and utilizing technology, like automation. Right now AI is really big, even implementing things like AI chatbots to like reduce strain on your receptionist. Reminder messages automation. I mean, that's been around for a very long time. That improves client experience also. Emails automation. There's things that can make a daily workload much easier with technology.
Yeah, technology is a tool. It's not a tool to be managed. Well, maybe that's not. It's key to your business. It's not an expense to be managed, right? You need to look at technology as not only protecting your business from cyber threats, but also, that could be, if you're a 5-person company, technology could be almost that 6 full-time employees.
Yes.
And think
it can save money on labor.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as, just something that, goes through a bunch of Excel files and finds commonalities, or with, reporting is typically close to management. You don't want to base your business on AI, results from AI. But AI can do a lot of that kind of sometimes boring pushing paper around that not necessarily a lot of people like. I was just, as an example, using Copilot, which is Microsoft's version of AI, and I'm like, okay, I got this messy CSV with some billing data and some other customer information. Like, okay, like Copilot, analyze this file. What can you tell me about this file? What did this mean? And yeah, could I figure that out, or could someone? Of course. But you know what? You create a couple prompts, you put those prompts into a text document. The next time that spreadsheet comes through, you run the same prompts through it again.
Yeah, so we covered marketing, systems automation, staff culture, and then being strong leader. Sometimes when we first start, we are a little bit insecure, and sometimes even, we feel like almost like a fake, because we're trying to build this business and we never done it before. So remember that you are the boss now, and you are capable to make those decisions, and things are not going to be perfect, but you're doing your best. For me, it also comes with having faith. I believe in higher power. I believe that God is with me along the way, and I can do all things through God. And if that's kind of what's been my strength and mission, and maybe for some people it's different, but if I feel like I am helping these people to feed their families, I'm trying to create a business where people gonna have a nice place to work at, and that's why culture is important, and I'm trying to create a nice place that would be great for me to run, because not all money is good money. So I want to make money and help them and hire people that align with our values. It gives me confidence as a business owner. Okay, maybe I don't do everything perfectly, and I have learned throughout the years how to do things better and better, but that intention is there, and that gives me confidence.
Yep. And the biggest thing that I see sometimes in businesses where they might be struggling, or there's poor culture, is there's an us versus them mentality with management.
Yes, and that's like a killer. That's really bad.
And, business kind of 101 is, you don't mess with people's pay, you don't mess with people's benefits, and you don't mess with where people sit. And, the pay and the benefits might sound very obvious, right? But the thing about where people sit, that might not be like, why? Like, what do you mean? It's, think about it this way. If, management has really nice high-end offices and, they're on their own executive floor and everybody else is stuck in, on folding tables and, old chairs and, obviously management is going to have probably offices, but, I think that the spirit of what I'm saying is, you're all in it together, right?
Well, you gotta be willing to be in the trenches, you know, like I'm never too good to clean a toilet, like as an owner, like if I see, that's I think what you're going for, that separation. There isn't a separation, no employee should be too good to clean a toilet or pick up trash off the floor. And whether it's management, CEO, or whoever it is. Yeah,
there's a large hotel chain. I think it's Marriott. I think is what it is. They have this mentality of it doesn't matter who you are at Marriott. If a customer, a guest comes up and says, "Hey, this coffee isn't good or whatever, or it's stale or whatever," if you're the CEO of Marriott, you own that. And Marriott, I don't know if this is actually you or not, but maybe I'm giving. But
just say nameless. Yeah, shall keep the
even if you're the CEO, you own that problem until it's fixed. And there is going to be some differences amongst the leadership and the employees, and that's okay, as long as it's not this us versus them mentality.
Yeah, it should never be that like, oh, well, management is stupid or employees are stupid, No, but everybody's trying to do their best, should be trying to do their best. There's probably maybe broken communication in between, and that's where the lack of systems, maybe poor training, poor onboarding comes in, poor lack of setting right expectations from the beginning of the job, of the work relationship, and then of course still keeping boundaries. There's gonna have to be professional boundaries, that's where like why we don't endorse any sort of like gossiping or things like that, because you should come to work, do your job and leave. It's not a place to do any sort of side things. If you want to meet with your coworkers outside work, that's fine, but we don't want any drama bringing into work or family. You should leave that outside the door.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that sounds great, right? But there's going to be gossip, there's going to be drama, there's going to be family thing, all of that. And when you have coworkers outside of the office, say they're going to get food or whatever, 9 times out of 10, they're going to talk about work, because that's the easiest commonality that they all have between each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about work, but
But, that's part of, having a good culture, good leadership, not an us versus them, is there can be some gossiping, there can be some drama like that.
But in a good way. Right. It shouldn't be never to like harm, if you can, people can present like suggestions, solutions to the management, but I think where the problem is, like if they try to hurt each other by these things, because gossip can really hurt. Like if somebody makes up some lies about somebody and then tells it to management, that can really that person could get fired for things like that.
There's 2 sides to every story, right? And, if an employee wants to lie to management, they can, right? They're adults. They can do whatever they want, Is that right? No, of course not. But you know what? People are still going to do it, right? It doesn't matter what businesses you are or what, But
it's a part of dealing with people.
But how do you deal with it, right? Do you reprimand some people?
They have to have correct investigation.
And not reprimand other people?
Have to be fair and do, fair investigation, maybe talk to different people, get different sides of the story, and then...
And if you're in management, the right decision might not be what you actually want to have happen, You have to look at it as like a judge, an impartial take your feelings out of it, you know?
Yeah, there shouldn't be feelings. It has to be objective.
Yep.
And okay, did this person violate certain policies or not?
Right.
Were they dishonest? Did they steal something? Were they, soliciting when they're not supposed to? Were they, making up, trying to sabotage someone? Then you look at those things.
And that all kind of, a lot of that comes back to, education, mission, and vision statements, right? So in any sort of business, you need to have constant education. People need to be constantly learning, and looking at new things. And you can't force that down on someone. If they don't want it, then they don't want it. And you know what? That's okay. But maybe that's not the right person to be in that position.
Yeah. And that's where it comes leading. People actually want to be led. Like, people don't want to be micromanaged, but they do need someone to lead them a lot of times.
And a lot of times people, they want to do more, right? They want to they want to have more responsibility, but they might be like, well, I don't want to say something to my boss because what if I don't do a good job at it? Well, I don't know if I'm going to be good, or I don't know where to start. But that's where your boss, management, and leadership, that's what they're for, right? If you're in a business and you go to a conference and you're like, oh my God, I got all these great ideas, go to your boss, say, hey, I got all these ideas. I'm not sure how to implement them. Hey, can we work on this together? Or, you know what? I know we have this project coming up. I really want to be the PM. Let me do it.
Yeah. Because if you're in the trenches, you might see something that management is not seeing because they're not maybe directly talking to the customers.
Yeah, I ran into an issue last week where, with an end user device, and when I was talking with a colleague that has more familiarity with building computers and gaming machines and things of that nature, and, I was like, oh man, we're going to have to take out the video card and do this, and this. And he was like, oh no. He was like, you got old school thinking, man. That's not the case anymore. It's just one thing to take out, a stick of RAM. I was like, oh, I don't build computers anymore, but you can still learn from other people, and I was like, oh, cool. Learn something new from these young guys.
So those are very important points, and we could spend hours talking about each, the marketing, Google ads, Facebook ads, local marketing, events, SEO, blog writing, personal brand building as an owner, creating YouTube videos, then culture, systems, processes, so all these things, as a small business owner, you gotta think about, and you gotta wear multiple hats until eventually your company hopefully gets big enough where you can, outsource more and more of these things. But at the beginning, you need to really kind of make sure you covered on those bases. Technology, especially, this day and age, you're not gonna be successful without good technology setups and systems and digital presence, and then good human resources part. That's the pillars why I see business owners struggle, not able to grow. But do you have anything else to add? Are we gonna wrap up this episode?
I think, look at your business long term, even if it's just you right now. Think of where you want your business to be in, say, 3, 4, 5 years, and that might help you set some of these policies, processes, and procedures in place, and looking at systems too, right? Don't think okay, well, we'll just settle right now for this system because it's cheap, it's easy, and it's good
much
enough.
Harder to change later.
Very, very difficult. Maybe not very, very, but it's very difficult to change, especially these critical lines of business, right? Down the road.
Mm-hmm. So it's, if possible, start right from the beginning, but you could start smaller,
Mm-hmm.
but think about long-term vision. And if you have to, you can take line of credit to hire quality people to help. For example, I offer business consulting for services and spa business owners if you're interested, because getting good mentor consultant, that can also really help. Nicholas here can help with IT support, and there's other vendors out there, Google Ads expert, Facebook Ads expert. Hire quality people that can help you, because I even didn't hire at the beginning like a good Google or Facebook ads help. Let's say if I did, I would have grew even faster, or certain things that I wish looking back that I did, which I thought I was saving money, but it costs you more in the long term because you're not growing as well.
Yep. Great. Maybe we'll pick a couple of these topics to kind of narrow it down, and maybe on the next video we'll do one more kind of geared towards 3 or 4 so we can dive a little bit deeper.
Yes, but hope this is helpful. If you're contemplating business ownership or you already are a business owner, I'm sure you can relate to these topics already, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And please subscribe. My website is brilliantmassageandskin.com, and you can find their free monthly webinar where I answer questions. Nicholas' website is itnvt.com, and he serves all US.
Yep. Anywhere you have good internet.
Have a brilliant day.